Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Todd Heisler.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really honored to be considered among this group. So it's amazing to be here. So obviously, given my background and what I'm going to show you, my foundation is being a photojournalist, a still photographer, and so everything that I say, you have to consider this. That's where I'm from. And that's the direction I'm going to be speaking to you from. What I'm hoping to do tonight is impart to you what I've learned along the way. I've been lucky enough to learn this gradually. I've never been forced into it, and I've made a lot of mistakes, as I'm sure everybody does. And so hopefully I can teach you, so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. Anyway. I've been a still photographer for going on 17 years now, and for as long as I've been doing this, even when I was in college, people have been predicting the death of photography and the death of photojournalism. Yet throughout that time, my faith in the medium has been rekindled again and again for different reasons. And as I begin to work more with multimedia, I've realized every approach is different, just as every project is unique. There isn't just one way to tell a story. And there are so many options and so many of these ways of storytelling embrace great photography. A major turning point in my career was in 2005 when I completed the story Final Salute for the Rocky Mountain News. After I spent about a year with a group of Marines who were bearing the weight of those who suffered the. This is not working. There we go. Who suffered the ultimate cost in war, and I learned through working on this project that the still photograph still continues to resonate, even though the public has become exponentially inundated with imagery. One photograph still has the power to make people stop, if but for a moment. What I also learned is that we have multiple platforms available to us to give new life to these images. And I think because of this, we're not replacing the image, we're accentuating them. By embracing multimedia and by using sound and video, we're able to give the subject a greater voice. And it's that simplicity, something about what I'll show you from this project, something as simple as just hearing the subject's voice has the power to move beyond the photographs. I'm not here to evangelize. I'm not here to evangelize about what the best way is, and not really tell you exactly what the direction of multimedia is going. I'm just want to give you what's worked for me and what I've learned along the way. There's no true one way to create it, but I've been lucky enough to work with some really incredibly talented storytellers and some great producers, and I just want to be able to show you the options and the way that I've seen them. So when we published this project, we knew that the majority of the readers that would see this once it launched were going to experience this online. And there was talk about multimedia, but we actually did this project within the newsroom fairly secretly, and it was just the reporter and I and the editors that knew what we were doing, because we were afraid that we would lose access at any time. And our fear was that introducing any other type of recording or video would really jeopardize that access. It was difficult enough to convince my subjects just to let me have a camera in there, just to photograph them. These are some of the saddest and most intimate situations that I've ever bore witness to. And photography felt obtrusive enough. But to the end of the production, We decided, because the online piece was gonna have such an effect, that we had to do something. So we decided to record the voices of the two major subjects. Catherine Cathy, whose husband was killed in Iraq, who you saw, and the Marine who knocked on her door to tell her the news, Major Steve Beck. This was a time, actually, when this was end of 2005, early 2006, hard to believe it was 5 years ago, when I think newspaper multimedia was still pretty new, at least in the US. But everybody was trying to embrace it, that it was going to save newspapers and that, everything was going to be all online. And I think in doing that, a lot of newspapers felt that they had to kind of pull out all the stops and kind of, show all the bells and whistles that they had. But with this piece, I was actually really adamant about not doing things for the sake of proving that we could. And part of that also was not including video. We did have some editors who really wanted to do video interviews or have some other video components, but I thought it would, because the still images were so strong and so personal, I thought that adding any video would kind of break down the fourth wall and take some of the mystery and interpretation out of the images. So instead we just recorded these very simple audio interviews. And I think, I'm a big fan of simplicity. There's some stuff I'll show you later where I've, started to layer more components on, but I still think, especially when you're starting something and the pictures are strong enough, I think there's no substitute for simplicity. So I'll just show you how this is just one of the chapters that we used.
We pulled up alongside the plane. You never feel ready for a moment like that. When his casket came off of the plane, that was when it really hit me that this was real. Because you expect your husband, son, brother, sister to come home, and you get to embrace them, not that they're going to come home covered with the American flag. Major Beck had asked me if I wanted to place the things that I had brought from home into the casket that evening. And so I had a couple of pictures from the ultrasound, and I had a bouquet of flowers, his favorite perfume that I wore, and I placed them all in different places within his casket and put the picture of the baby over his heart. I wanted to stay there, I guess, as my last night to be with him. Honestly, I never wanted to leave his body alone, which is part of the reason that I asked to have the Marines watch over him 24 hours a day.
It's incredibly simple. It's just having somebody, reminisce about exactly what happened in that room, and I think it's actually really profound, and it gives a deeper meaning to the photographs. It's been really amazing working with the New York Times. Our digital multimedia department has just been taken a really aggressive approach to multimedia. But I think at the same time, they've shown, I guess the word I would use is restraint. Nobody's forced me or any of the photographers into doing multimedia, which is a good thing on one respect, because it means they still care about just strong still photography. But it's also can be a bad thing as well, because I'm not forced to do it, and then other people will do it for you. And I think to really try to have your voice and get the work out there and really be a part of the process, I think you really need to learn these skills and pick up the slack and have vision the same way that I feel you need to have vision to be a great still photographer. I'm lucky to work with great editors, and because they make conscious decisions on what medium works best for what particular story. So while one story might have great potential for video, maybe another one will only work as a slideshow or an audio slideshow. And a lot of times when it's a larger story, we'll actually have a meeting or conversation and talk about, do we do video on this one? Or, I think it's just a slideshow. And to be honest, just slideshows with still images are very popular on our site. So, I think that's a pretty good sign. Like I said, working within this process has allowed me to work into the multimedia process gradually and actually collaborate with some really talented people. And the case in point is working on the 1 in 8 million project. It was, I really feel it was a nexus of ideas and passions within the newsroom, and it came together quite serendipitously for me. Having recently moved to New York, I was fascinated with probably anybody that goes to New York, with the vibrancy on the streets and all the possibilities that has for storytelling. And, I come from a community news background, so I really like doing human interest stories and feature stories. So one day I mentioned to one of our editors, Megan Lorem, who's our deputy director now, and I just said I was still interested in doing some of the small stories. Even though I like doing national, international stuff, I like these small stories. And to be honest, I actually completely forgot that I said this to her until one day in passing, I was coming in from an assignment, and she was talking to Sarah Kramer, and she said, hey, Todd, you like small stories. Go talk to Sarah Kramer. And Sarah is a wonderful audio producer who'd worked for StoryCorps, and Lexi Mainland, another multimedia, basically at the time were audio producers. They were pitching a concept that would feature the voices of New Yorkers. And I was really intrigued by this idea because it's something I thought would always be great. Is what they wanted to do was a very simple concept, very personal audio, interview less than 5 minutes, and at the time they talked, it would be a series of portraits to go with it. And I was lucky that they actually brought me in on the project, on the ground level before it, just as they were pitching it. So I was able to help, develop it and really help make photography a strong part of it. We agreed right away when we started developing the idea. We actually hadn't even had a subject yet. Actually, there was one guy. I'll show you just a little bit of his piece. That was going to be our first subject. But the one thing we agreed on right away, that it was going to be shot all in black and white. Originally, I was going to do it on film, but I don't think it really matters. I think digital really helps for expediency, and the production turnaround was really quick. We're doing these once a week, so I think it was really important, for the editing to have these digital. But thematically, I think black and white worked best because it's more cohesive. You have a lot of different characters, and you're able to string them together, and they're all part of the same story then. And I think it's more interpretive and timeless. But most importantly, in working on this, I really wanted the photographs to be able to stand on their own, so that each character told their own story. The idea was really simple. It's each subject had to live within one of the 5 boroughs of New York City, never been in the paper, and have something interesting to say, to be a good talker, an interesting job, something like that. The other kind of secret criteria we had was that you couldn't nominate yourself. So when we asked people, hey, do you know anybody interesting? If they said, yeah, you should do it on me, that meant automatically off the list. So we did 54 of these altogether. And somebody actually mentioned to me, I didn't realize this. I'll just let this load. I'm the only person that's met every one of them, which I thought was pretty cool. So this This is the interface. It was created by Tom Jackson, one of our multimedia developers.
Only thing I try to do is show them and let them pick up their own insight.
And so each week, these would string together, and they would build on top of each other, almost like a subway train or something like that. And the way we developed it,
the people, I just couldn't deal with them. So I would lock myself away and sleep in the day and come out in the night.
It's just so amazing to hear all these voices. The way we actually developed this is, we sat down in a meeting, we had a couple stories shot, and it was kind of like an a la carte method.
I never wanted to work for anybody. I always wanted to be my own boss.
That's the very first character we ever did. We sat down and we talked about, okay, we liked the way year-end pictures looked online last year, but we didn't like this about it. We liked the thumbnails. There was another project that we really liked, and we had this quick meeting. We drew things out on a dry erase board. And Tom Jackson, who's just absolutely brilliant, I think it was within like 2 weeks, he came back with a prototype that looked very close to this. And the only thing he had done is he had a different panorama in the background, and it was maybe it didn't move as much, but it's pretty amazing that he essentially turned this out within 2 weeks. The other interesting part of it, which you're hearing here, we were originally just going to do just straight-on portraits.
I work at a bookstore, and I always have everything delivered there. Even dead stuff, like squirrels that are frozen, but I don't tell anybody.
We were really going to just start out with just very straight portraits, and they were going to be even more spare than this. But when we did the first character, the druggist, the pictures, just the situation was so interesting, and we realized we had to do something a little more than just like a 5-6 picture thing. And we didn't want them to look too much like traditional audio slideshows where like everything is kind of on point. We wanted them to, because a lot of these stories are very reminiscent. So I had to try to photograph what I could see now, and so we took a little less literal approach to the photo editing. But I should say, the audio is done at such a high level, and I think when I was able to work just on the stills, and the audio people just worked on their audio, at the highest level that they can do, you pair these together, and the sum becomes greater than their parts. And I actually learned so much from listening and dealing with the audio on these, because these guys are amazing. They're editing, and I'll just play a little piece of this one because it'll give you a sense of like these openers, because they're just brilliant.
The first time that I got a squirrel, I thought, I looked at it and I said, am I going to be able to do this? Am I really going to be able to cut this thing open? But once you think about it as a project and something that you have to do, it's really no different than cutting chicken to make for dinner. There's really not any guts involved.
It's just like once you hear that first part, you're just like pulled right in. So I think that was a good lesson to learn about audio by working with.
When
these
I would
guys.
dictate a test on it, I would love to hear my voice. Oh, do I love that so much?
I should note the creators of this project, Sarah Kramer and Lexi. They come from backgrounds in which they give the same degree of passion that I give to my photography to the audio. They come from an audio background, and so being able to work together like this, it helped us gain an appreciation for each other's craft, ultimately elevating each other, as you heard in The Taxidermist. So we actually did these, the way we produced these was in the reverse order. That we'd find the subjects first, and then this is from the druggist. We'd find the subjects first, and then a producer would do a pre-interview. We wanted to find out if we could get access to, were they a good talker, and kind of explain to them, what they were getting into. And then once they did that, they found that the subject was going to work out. Then I would come into the mix, and this was actually all done before I met the person. So it was a kind of a really interesting way to meet these people on a gradual level. As I shot these, I tried to think on a couple levels. putting these together, you have to think more cinematically, but without being too formulaic. And I can't stress how crucial it is to have enough content to work with when you're putting together the final product. Fortunately, that means that maybe not every single image can be as precious as you want it to be, but ultimately that's the goal, is to try to have every image, live up to the next one. I actually found the process quite liberating because you no longer have to shoot for one image like the way you would for the paper. All the beautiful textural images that would never get published, now they make these like beautiful transitions. And you don't necessarily have to see the subject's face in every frame. You can shoot the people around them. You can do things like this. And so it actually totally changed the way I saw in my daily shooting. So as that got better, then this got better. And so, it was just for me, it was a wonderful experience as a photographer and kind of loosen up a little bit. I would never get a picture like this in the paper, but, to try to show something about the adoptive daughter, taking just this really straight portrait, it became a lot of fun, and it just brought me closer to the subjects. And, you think about your scene setter's sense of place, details. And what was great about this project, I could go, I was able to go to places I would never do, like we would never do a story on jury duty, but to be able to do that, it's such a, part of the New York experience. And as I did this too, I learned to see more. It really brought me in, and hearing the audio and really trying to illustrate that or interpretate that was really wonderful. And again, things that maybe wouldn't get in the paper, but I tried to find these little themes within the project that I put in each one, so that as a body of work at the end of the year, I would have like street scenes or walls. I was just obsessed with walls, which in these pieces says a lot about the subject. So once they had the subject, they do a rough cut, maybe about 5 to 10 minutes. And I would get this with the contact information for the subject, and this is the first time I got to listen to the subject's voice. And as you heard before, and as I'll play this next clip, they're kind of mysterious, but that's why the audio is so alluring in these pieces. So here's what I start with. And basically, I would get this, and wherever I was, if it was at home in the office, I would put my headphones on and just close my eyes, and then, really try to think about, okay, what am I going to shoot?
Ask me what I do, and I'll say guess, and you'll say, okay, I'll guess, or you'll say, oh, I don't want to guess, and I'll say, come on, don't you think it would be more fun if we guessed? Because this is all about having fun and being playful, and sort of leaving our mind and our mental patterns and just kind of being present. That's when attraction is built, because we both feel good like children. I'm just gonna cut in front here, okay? No, I'm kidding. That's terrible, right? I don't even have any food. I was just gonna cut through, right? And not only am I gonna cut in front, this looks good to me. I would like this, right? You pay for it. I just want 3 pieces.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah. Is that okay?
No, that's not okay.
So this is a piece, his moniker was the Ladies' Man. And what I got was the synopsis of what he does is he teaches guys how to meet girls. It's kind of an oversimplification, as you'll hear when you see the piece, but this is ultimately it's very intriguing. And I thought, how am I going to photograph this? I have to go out with this guy and do this. So to do these, and time is such a crucial element, I think, with photography in general, but with multimedia, it's even more, because you really have to, show a little bit of an arc of the character and really get in with them. And on the average, I would spend anywhere from a couple hours to an entire day with a subject, sometimes in multiple visits. This particular one, I'm just going to pause it for a sec. This was a few visits because it was kind of hit or miss with what he was doing, whether he had guys that he was taking out on, quote unquote, field trip. But other people, I'll show you another one that I did in 2 or 3 hours. And others, it was 3 days. But, it took time to gain the trust of the subject. But I also felt that in doing the audio part of these, I wasn't part of that, But even the ones that I have done, I find it brings you closer to the subject, and it helps you with access. One, because you learn more about that person, and you kind of get picture ideas that way. But also, when I got to this point, people had done the audio interview. I think there may be a sense of relief there, and so, it was a little easier to work with people once they got that part out of the way. So I'll play the ladies' man for you.
People often say, what do you do? And I think that answering that question outright 8 out of 10 times is antithetical to your purpose. Ask me what I do, and I'll say guess, and you'll say, okay, I'll guess, or you'll say, oh, I don't want to guess, and I'll say, come on, don't you think it would be more fun if we guessed? Because this is all about having fun and being playful and sort of leaving our mind and our mental patterns and just kind of being present. That's when attraction is built, because we both feel good like children. I'm just gonna cut in front here, okay? No, I'm kidding. That's terrible, right? I don't even have any food. I was just gonna cut through, right? And not only am I gonna cut in front, this looks good to me. I would like this, right? You pay for it. I just want like 3 pieces.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah. Is that okay?
No, that's not okay.
Oh, why not? I guess about 5 years ago, I had broken up with a girl. And there's moments I would have, maybe if I was hopped up on coffee or something, where I would have the courage to approach a girl, and maybe if the girl just some reason found me attractive, she would take over and finish it. And then maybe I could ask her out or something. But a lot of the times I would see a girl I was attracted to, and I didn't know what to do. I looked on the internet for this sort of how to meet women kind of thing, and to my surprise, a bunch of blogs came up by various people actually working on this like a science. So I started taking what these people were saying, and I just took it out to the street, and I began to see every interaction as like a scene in a play. One of the biggest things I did that was sort of both ego bruising at first, but it had to be, and then ultimately liberating is I made a pact with myself that I will talk to 5 women every day for the next 3 weeks, and all 5 women, no matter what, I'm going to ask for their phone number. I'm going to ask them out. So this was sort of burning up my ego in the face of rejection. No one's ever said something like, get away from me to me, or any of this kind of thing. I don't think ever, really. They may have looked at me like they wanted me to, or, well, maybe a couple girls did. All right. So, right, I forgot about that. Well, that hurts my feelings. I would say, hey, let's hang out sometime, but now the only way that you'll like me is if I ignore you all the time, right? I'll say, hey, what's up, and then I'll disappear for 2 weeks. And I'll call you, hey, and you'll be like, what? That's not fun, right? No.
Well, you're welcome to give me a shout sometime.
Okay. I would like it. Do you like wine? Do you drink? They call people pickup artists, and I think that's a derogatory term. There's nothing more important and more empowering than becoming good at being a socializer, not a schmoozer, which is another derogatory term, but someone who is being authentic in a moment-to-moment way, and being very specific and being very playful, which is, Buddha-like, right? It's very spiritual.
The subway picture was actually really interesting, because part of one of the lessons he does is for the guys was, okay, you're waiting for the subway and you see a beautiful woman, but the train's coming. You have 30 seconds to get her phone number. And nobody else could do it, but he was able to actually get her phone number. He literally stopped the doors from closing. What we tried to do with all these, and what I wanted to do with the photographs, was that as you string them together, they would tell a larger story about New York City that would build over time. And diversity was a huge part of this. We wanted to have, ethnically, economically, geographically, the different characters. We wanted to hit different notes. And because they built over time, we couldn't have this type of character next to that type of character. So, you couldn't put the dictaphone doctor, the, kind of older guy next to, an accountant, because it would just be too work-based. So, we tried to kind of edit these as we go, and we'd have meetings each week to find the different characters. This was the blind wine taster, who was brilliant. So for this project, I rarely did audio, and I was rarely with the producer as they were doing it, for a couple of reasons. as you can hear, the pieces are very personal and very quiet. And we tried, for this particular subject, I forget what we call her, but this is Pepper, and she's a transsexual who used to, be in the club scene during the 80s, but just, is a shut-in now. Like she only goes out at night, looks out, watches everything out the window, and it was a very conversational piece. And working with, trying to record audio while I was shooting this was impossible, because to get this type of audio that Sarah Kramer did, the microphone is this close, and so it's very personal, and it's impossible to photograph like that. So, we decided, we would work separately. And again, like I was saying before, the variety, the scene setters is just so key to these. I was always kind of from the background of photography, where you could do a lyrical edit, you just shoot what you like and string it together later. But these, I think you have to be more specific. I'm going to play him in a sec. To give you an example, we've used very little ambient sound, which is usually a crucial element to a piece. But since these were very personal, we usually didn't need it because we thought ambient would get in the way of it. But this is kind of how I learned as I went along. Some of these pieces we would decide, we really need some ambient for this spot. And so since I would be out with the subject, I would collect that. And so this is a good example of kind of my role in gathering. But there's also a little piece of excitement that I got in this as well. I'll explain afterward.
I wouldn't go in without saying hello to you, I love you.
I can work the room at a restaurant very easily. A lot of times I'll go into a restaurant and there's 10 people there that I know, and you have to go over to everyone and say hello.
Hi, darling.
How are you?
I can't complain. How's business? Oh, by the way, Shakira was incredible on that show the other night.
I missed the whole thing. I
Oh,
was at the Yankee game.
God.
You're out with this one, or you have friends or clients who have so much money, and it's great to see these humongous, fabulous apartments and fabulous townhouses and these mansions in the Hamptons, but they're not mine at the end of the day.
That was, by the way, that was Shakira's manager who missed the whole show when they heard the audio. But the epiphany that I had with this was, when I was capturing that audio, I had the same excitement that I have when I'm capturing a photograph. And it's essentially the same thing, and that's what kind of hooked me right there. So I want to show just one more piece, and we can move on to something else. This is, to give you an idea of the diversity, and also this is a piece that I did in one day. So this was shot from like 6 in the morning to like 9 at night. And, it was just straight through.
I was the kind of girl that got along with everybody. People never say no to me like right in my face. But that happens a lot on the streets as a missionary. Sometimes people have like really physical reactions, especially with moms who have little kids. They sort of like quickly usher their child away from me. And then the meanest comment I've got is just someone sincerely telling me how I am wasting my time and bringing disgrace to my parents. And that was so harsh. Down in Chinatown, a lot of people don't know about Jesus Christ. And they are maybe somewhat puzzled that why me, an Asian girl, will be running around telling everyone about Jesus Christ. I've thought about that a lot, and I really think we all need a savior. And it's very normal that people work 11 or 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And for them, life is just going to work, going to sleep. And when you're so busy doing these things, it's really hard to take care of your spiritual needs. There's one experience I think has changed my life forever. There was a mother. She couldn't afford private burial for her baby. And she just sat there, kind of grabbed my hands in hers and just cried, and with tears rolling down her cheeks. And I remember walking out of there that day, kind of looking back to the past 21 years of my life. And I just wished I had been so much more selfless before. I wish instead of using all that time and energy worrying about my grades, my weight, my makeup, and my future, I wish I could have spent more energy worrying about others. Before coming on the mission, I thought I would teach others about some things. But in a way, I felt that I had to be here for Heavenly Father to educate me. And he had to do it through all these people here in New York.
This piece reminds me of why I think I became a photographer in the first place. And we already saw him. As I get a little older, I start trying to really evaluating, why I do what I do and why I like photography, whatever. And I think really what it is about a connection. It's like I want to have this connection to the subject, and I want the reader to connect with my subject, and try to take myself out of that as much as possible. And I think what the audio does, and I hate to give it a name, multimedia, this or that. It's just storytelling. It's narrative storytelling, and these are just things that just help the viewer connect even more to the subject. And if I can do that, I don't really care how I do it. So, like I said, I haven't really been forced into this. And so I've, really wanted to take it upon myself to do more and dig more into this. And, coming off working on 1 in 8 million, I felt like I had really, learned enough from these great producers that I really wanted to build on what I learned from these great producers. And so, I decided I wanted to keep taking more on. And this project, Vanishing Mind, was a really wonderful opportunity to do that. It's about an extended family in Colombia who suffers from early onset Alzheimer's, and it's a high percentage of the family. Usually, you'll see a family with 5 or 6 kids, and 4 of them will have varying stages of Alzheimer's. This is a sister taking care of her older sister that has, she's in the final stages of it. So I decided I wanted to take all this on and really, dig into doing the audio and secretly doing video. And, the challenges of doing this, it really shows your weaknesses as a photographer as well. One, because you have to be more decisive, you have to juggle these different tasks. But I think most importantly is you have to find the story. You really have to have a storyline, and something like this is really overwhelming. This body of work, what I'm showing you right here is the still entry. It was a finalist for the feature photography for Pulitzer this year. And so this is just the entry of stills. But I feel like the stills for this project, for this multimedia piece, are the building blocks. It's my foundation. It's what I do best, and so I want to build off of that. And really, you have to find your characters. This is the doctor who has been following this family lineage of about 5,000 people. He's been following them for over 20 years. So he's created this family tree of everybody, and he was our entree into the subject, and he helped us focus and find our characters. So there was one extended family that we were dealt with. This brother and sister on the left, and he's in the early stages of this, and he's a little defiant, kind of in denial about it. This is the mother. She never developed Alzheimer's, but she's caring for all her children. But you need a voice. You need to focus. And I think, you know, when you do find that focus, even with still photography, you spend more time with one character, and then your access becomes better and better. And then you can let the story be told through them. And I think it's, you know, as stills, you can kind of go all over the place. But when you start doing audio and video, you really have to have a clear storyline, you know, usually. I mean, I don't believe in any hard and fast rules for it, but for something like this, you know, you really have to have a clear storyline, otherwise it's just too confusing and you have too many characters. I usually work with, you know, I don't do a lot of editing. We have such a great infrastructure in place at the Times, and I think any newspaper that's thinking about taking this on, I think it's really helpful to have a team in place that really knows editing, has some experience with this, you know, because for me, I want to be out in the field. You know, I want to be out shooting. I don't really want to sit in an editing suite for 2 weeks straight. You know, these things take time. And I'm lucky that I have a producer that worked on this, Nancy Donaldson, who, you know, she really understands my vision, and, you know, I could totally trust her. And so if I, you know, throw a bunch of images and sound with her, I can circle back in a little time, and you know, we're pretty much on the same page with where we want to go with something. You know, I just really believe in collaboration. I've always collaborated with great writers, and, you know, I like to collaborate with the great producers. Hang on one second. This was this was the video piece that we did for this project, and I worked with Nancy Donaldson, and then the photo editor Soo-Jung Kang helped produce this. And, you know, it's a 5-minute piece, and I would say, I mean, not like we were working on it every hour of the day straight, but it took, you know, like 2 months to really get this thing into the paper or into publication. It's, you know, it's a really time-consuming process, and it has to go through a lot of layers of editors and whatnot. But the intro, this was a good turning point. I just started using the SLR HD video, and I was doing the audio for this, but I started shooting the video for like texture, and I was just kind of experimenting with it. So this is kind of my first foray into video, but I didn't really tell anybody that I was shooting it, and then, you know, was afraid that I wouldn't like it, and then I would kind of have to own up to it. So, but I liked what I had, and so I gave Nancy all the video and to see what we can do with it. But when I shot this first scene, this is what how I envisioned it would start in the intro, which I think, I mean, that's how I like to work. I like to think, how's this thing going to start? How are you going to set the tone? And I didn't really mention it to her. I just said, yeah, look at the video, see what you have. And this is like the first thing she pulled out for the intro. So I knew, like, okay, she really gets it, you know. We can work together. So I'll let that play. Oops. Wrong one, sorry. There you go.
Cuando están empezando a enfermar tienen cambios horribles. Horrible, horrible. Yo no le deseo esto ni al perro más bravo. No. Es la enfermedad más aterradora que existe en la tierra.
In most of the world, a parent starts forgetting, and the children begin caretaking. But in the mountain villages of northwestern Colombia, there's a ruthless reversal. People are getting Alzheimer's so young. Laura Cuartas has watched 4 of her children get sick, all beginning in their 40s. Laura and her children are members of the largest family in the world to suffer from Alzheimer's. They are victims of a single genetic mutation that has touched the lives of a lineage of 5,000 people. Now she's 82 and a widow. Her husband, who had Alzheimer's, died almost 20 years ago. With the help of her daughter Gloria, she cares for the ones who suffer from the disease. This pocket of sadness and forgetting is tucked among the mountains in a region of Colombia called Antioquia. Here, the genetic trail leaves no question about who will suffer from the disease or when. It's a place where families are just waiting for Alzheimer's to strike. Until recently, this family's disease seemed isolated, with few scientists working to help them. One of the only ones who is there is Dr. Francisco Lopera, a neurologist who's been studying this family since 1982. Scientists used to think that this family's form of Alzheimer's had little connection to the disease that affects elderly people. But their studies show that the two are remarkably similar, and that this family might be the best hope for developing an effective treatment to millions of Alzheimer's patients worldwide. After almost 30 years of research, they've begun an unprecedented project. They'll test drugs on the people here who have the gene, but don't yet have symptoms, to see if treatment can delay or prevent the disease altogether.
This is the place in the world where it's possible to do prevention therapy more easy than in other places, because here we have many people with this situation.
Laura's fourth affected child, Carlos Alberto, and his family are among those who are suffering from this disease. Carlos has been married to his wife Blanca Nelly for 23 years. When they were younger, he used to serenade her on his guitar. But when he was about 47, the illness began.
Al principio nos dio muy duro a todos, porque excelente esposo, excelente papá.
The guitar is gone. She had to throw it away. It upset him too much to know that he couldn't play it anymore. And the disease continues to get worse.
Ya de él queda muy poco, porque ya la sonrisa se le está perdiendo. El afecto por nosotros cada día también se le pierde, porque él trata como de cogernos, pero ya es brusco, ya no es con ternura, sino con brusquedad.
For this type of Alzheimer's, the symptoms evolve so rapidly that every sensation and function is gone within just a few years.
Es muy duro, bastante duro saber que es una enfermedad neurodegenerativa y ya pues se ha intentado por todos los medios, pero me duele bastante saber que cada vez lo voy a ver peor.
And it's even worse for them, because Blanca Nelly's family has the gene too. She and Carlos are distant cousins. At 41, she doesn't know what her future holds. 3 of her brothers and sisters are in the early stages of the disease, and her mother is in its final stages.
Es totalmente diferente, es como volver a nacer. Con la diferencia que cuando uno nace, cada día comienza a ir adelantando, a ir progresando, hablando, caminando. Mi mamá cada día va perdiendo todas sus facultades, ya las perdió.
Already, her mother has lived much longer than anyone thought, because of Blanca Nelly's tireless devotion.
Me gusta hablarle y darle las gracias por lo buena que fue con nosotros. Probablemente no me escuche porque yo digo, si me escuchara, me cogería o me mostraría algún gesto. Entonces me siento bien hablando con ella. ¡Ay, niño! ¡Lindo! Linda la niña, la casa.
For Blanca Nelly, caring for them is what she wants. If Blanca Nelly herself has early onset Alzheimer's, her 3 children will have a 75% chance of suffering the same fate. And for the next generation,
I try to too for the gathering the audio and dealing with all this. I try to put people to work too, because audio is actually very easy to teach people. And so, if there's a great shot or something, I gave it to the reporter or somebody else can always get like good ambient sound.
Not just for sufferers in Colombia, but for millions of people around the world, so that future generations, like Blanca Nelly's children, can live with hope instead of fear.
So I'll roll through this really quickly because I got to wrap it up. Just to kind of what I took away from this, time obviously in the back end is really, really important, but also I found that planning is really important when you're starting to do these, and you really want to figure out who your characters are going to be and kind of where you want to go with it. It helps you manage all this. For the second counterpart to this piece, we did another one in South Korea. And, unfortunately, because the video went so well with this one, they thought, oh, great, now you can videotape everything. Which was fun, but again, it's adding another layer of work on top of you. And I think, you need to be careful with that. And Gabriel Dance, one of our multimedia guys, said it best. He gave some good advice. He said, just do a couple of things really well. You don't have to do a lot of things. Just do 1 or 2 things, really well, and you can work off of that. So anyway, with this, we kind of planned this idea because it's more about the population, and then we kind of hone in on some characters. So, I had this idea of this intro, kind of put you in the place to kind of build up to the story. Again, like I said, I'm obsessed with intros, but. And you really have to shoot a lot more than you think you need. There are a lot of scenes from this whole thing that were cut and some characters that we interviewed, but the producer will always say, you got better to have
South
more.
South Korea is one of the world's fastest aging societies. In just 15 years, 20% of the population will be over 65.
So from there, we did do, the good thing about doing the video interviews is then
there's a program.
You don't necessarily, you've already established that character, and then you can kind of use different pictures. The worst mistake you have is you have this great interview with somebody and you don't have any pictures that establish who that person is. So that's key. And I'll just show you the end of it.
These are hard lessons for
trying to
them.
juggle all these things
But
together.
South Korea faces a deluge.
It's about trying to get their youth involved in taking care of the elderly, and then trying to get these together. Scrambling to find the character, and do the sound, and finally I just went down to stills because that I think, like what Gabe said, do a couple things really well, and this scene was just so rich.
Right after school. It's important to let them understand that they're not alone. They get very sad when we leave, and some cry. They think we will never come back. For some reason, there's the feeling of their touch that remains with me. I don't know why, but I feel it.
So what I try to do with these is, what works for me is I think you have to be really decisive. You have to pick one medium and follow through with it. So, with this, I said, okay, this situation is so rich for still photography. That's all I did for that piece. But then once while I was shooting, I found that the one girl who organized this seemed like the most involved. And so I took 3 girls and I did an interview afterward, to figure out what they're doing. They knew that I had a lot of photographs of them, and this one particular person stood out. But you have to be willing to miss a picture, and you have to be willing to miss some audio. It's impossible to get everything. So, you have to pick one and go with it, but then be ready for anything. And also remember that you have to make pictures for the paper as well. So, I'll give you an example of kind of what happened, we're using video. And this is why the SLRs are great, because I'm shooting this video. And it was like pure instinct, just shot tripped the shutter. It ruined the clip, but again, you can still use a still in the slideshow, and you still have to make a picture for the paper. So I would just say, in general, for me, simplicity is, that's kind of what I look for. And these are general. I don't make rules. Focus that story. It really helps to kind of get your arms around it. Collaboration just worked great for me. I'm not somebody who wants to sit in a dark room for weeks on end, and it's great to collaborate people because you can really get your point across better. And time, for the editors that are here, hopefully there are editors here. This stuff takes time. It's not something you can turn around very quickly with 1 or 2 people, and but the payoff I think is great in terms of communication.